Hello everyone. I guess everyone is really excited to be at FlutterCon for this first FlutterCon. So my name is Guillaume. I'm working at Invertase on the Flutterfire project. So if you have an issue with Firebase on Flutter, maybe it will be me that will be answering that. But today I'm going to talk a bit about Firebase, but I'm going to share my experience when I had a small idea for a small side project, like maybe every developer has at some point. I wanted to create like a shared email client so you can share email between family and friends and stuff like that. So I wanted to create that, so I hook up to the Gmail API and to everything. The interface was nice and everything, but now I had to create like the notifications for the emails. And this is where I've learned a lot, and I wanted to share like everything I've learned. So maybe you can improve your future apps and handle all kind of notifications. So first, I'm going to start by checking like what are the different type of notification that we can handle and we can encounter in an app. So we have, okay, it can be a notification when you get home that is sent to one of your family members to say, hey, I'm back home safely. It can be your alarm clock in the morning to not miss a conference. It can be a message from someone. So there is like a lot of different type of notification, and we are going to see all how to handle each kind of notification. I will try to cover as much as I can in the small amount of time I have, but the thing that we can already take from that is that almost all kind of notification is possible in Flutter. So you have to find the right way of doing it. So first, I'm going to talk about the different notification provider there is. So there is Firebase Cloud Messaging, which is like really useful and almost mandatory if you want to send notification on Android. There is AppNS, which is the same thing for Apple. And then there is a lot of different notification provider, for example, OneSignal, Airship, and a lot of other ones. The nice things to see is like the Flutter frameworks often are based on Firebase Cloud Messaging, either directly by using the Flutterfire package or directly using the native implementation and rebuilding above it. So my example will be like using the Firebase Cloud Messaging, but they can always be transposed to all the other notification provider. Often those notification provider will offer like additional features. That's why they exist. But everything can be done with any of them. So first, let's see the difference between device notifications and server notification. So device notification are the notifications that are directly scheduled on your device. It can be something that is scheduled from the user, which means about an alarm clock that will wake you up in the morning. These are often notifications that doesn't need tracking for the server, which means that you don't absolutely need to know if the notification has been delivered. Because maybe your app will try to send a notification, but the user will have disabled that. But it's not important because it came from the device of the user. And it can be also triggered depending on device information. So for instance, if a notification has to be triggered when the user is getting somewhere, it will be triggered directly on your device. It will be weird to have a service that is sending back the location to the server and the server is sending back the notification to the device. It wouldn't make sense. So those are notifications that are directly created and sent by the device itself. On the opposite side, you have server notifications that are sent by a server to the device, so it's displayed to the user. Often those notifications happen because the device couldn't know on itself that it has to show something. So it's a notification that will depend on another person action. So someone sends you a message, a notification is displayed, or a notification that depends on a specific time or event. If you have a marketing event, you will probably send a notification. It will be also weird if you add something coded in your app that say at this specific time start the marketing campaign or something like that, because it could change between versions or stuff like that. So yeah, these are the two types of notification that you can have. And now we are going to start with example. So the first things to do when you want to have a notification is, of course, set up your notification provider. So here I'm going to give some general example on FCM on some bug and issues I see directly on the Flutterfire GitHub repository. So the first thing is like each platform needs a specific setup when using Firebase Cloud Messaging. And even though Flutterfire supports Dart-only initialization, it's not the case for Firebase Cloud Messaging, because you will often need to handle notification when the Dart part of your app isn't started. It can be when your app is killed and you receive notification, only the native part of your app will be started. So you still need the native platform configuration files, so the Google service.json and the Google info list. Those are generated automatically when using the Flutterfire CLI. So you shouldn't have a lot of things to do, but if you are using different flavors depending on your environment or things like that, there is also this supported in the Flutterfire CLI, so you can directly do that. And the second good practice that you can have is that you should confirm that each platform is working properly on notification. I often see team like building all the notification using, for instance, only iOS, and then starting to check that everything is working in Android, and often you get like some behavior that is not the same. Sometimes Android way of displaying notification will be available with more feature, like you can do thread, you can do grouping of notifications. So you should probably confirm that each notification works properly and feels good on each platform. Then the second thing to set up is requesting permission. It used to be only an Apple thing. Now it's on web and Android as well since Android 13. So now every platform requires that you have a permission to display notification. So some good practice is not requesting permission as soon as your app is open, and especially when your app is first open, because if someone saw it open your app for the first time, and so you want to accept notification, it will probably choose decline, because they don't know what you are going to send. So probably explain which notification will be sent, and always provide a path for the user to unsubscribe from each notification type. Because even if on Android it's quite easy because you have like channel IDs, so in your settings you will have each notification type that can be unsubscribed individually. On iOS you just have an on-off switch, so you probably want to let your user directly in your app choose which type of notification they are receiving, because otherwise they might just try to remove all notification without checking. So that's the small code in FCM to request permission. So as you can see, there is a lot of different options. You should probably always check for alerts and sound and badge to be sure that your app have the red badge that will make your user come back. So yeah. Now another difference between notification is foreground notification and background notification. This is handled differently because it depends on the state of your app and what may happen. So foreground notification are the notifications that are received when the app is already open. Often in a lot of apps, when you receive a notification when your app is already open, it will not be displayed in the notification stack. Your app will have to handle it on its own. So you can use Flutter local notification, I will explain it a bit later, to display it even when your app is in foreground, or you can just move the notification in your local state and add it to a notification page, like in Twitter. When you receive something, it will just go on the bottom right of your app. The other type of notification is our background notification. So the app can be in background but opened, and the app can be in background and killed. So that's two type of notification as well. If the app is killed, it will be started to handle the notification. So it will be the native part will be started, but also part of your main will be run. So you always have to be sure that your main will run stuff quite quickly. Otherwise, you might get killed by iOS, and it will start to rate limit your app, and you will not receive all the notification, and you will not understand why. And it's probably because your app is taking too long to handle the notification. So this is the way to listen to notification in the foreground. So it's just a small handle, so Firebase messaging.onMessage.listen, and then you are listening to the stream. You've got all the information, so the data that you are sending, but also the notification content, which are a map. So it's quite easy to parse and reuse. While when you are listening to notification in the background, this is a different handler. This is Firebase messaging.onBackgroundMessage. So as you can see, it's not depending on a particular instance of your Firebase messaging app, which means that if you have multiple Firebase app initialized in your app, you will need to be able to distinguish each one, because you will need to, in the handler, initialize the app. So on the background message, you give a function to handle the message. And as you can see, on the top of the function, you have a little decorator, which is Pragma VM entry point. It helps the native Android and iOS part to run this code properly, which means that the iOS and native part will be able to get a link to this function in Dart and execute it from Java and Objective-C. And as you can see, you have to do everything again. So even if in your main you are initializing Firebase, you will have to do it again in your dedicated function, and then you can handle your message normally. So this is fairly basic, and you can find that in the demo app and everything. So it's available in the repository. The next things you have to do to test your notification is sending a notification from a server. So it's going to be the next part. Unfortunately, there is no Dart admin SDK to send your notification. So you can either use Node.js, Java, Python, Go, or C#. But in Dart, you can use the API directly. So you will not have the full typing experience, but you can still do it. And one of the easiest way of initializing a server for sending notification is probably using Firebase Cloud Functions, because you will have all the admin SDK properly configured, and you will not have to add a service account and stuff like that. So using Firebase init function, you can initialize a TypeScript project that will have everything set up for you. And this is the kind of function you can find. So as you can see, this is a fairly easy function. You have to type. Here in the messaging payload, you only have a notification, which means that the notification, when it will be displayed, will be having a title, new email, and the body, you have a new email. And then you send to device using tokens. And yeah, that's your device should receive notification at this point. If you don't, there is probably some issue with SHA keys or stuff like that. So you have to be sure that everything is properly set up. So in my previous example, it was directly a notification that was displayed on the app. But as you can see on the server, maybe I'm not aware of the state of the app. Maybe this email was already read when I arrive, and I don't want the notification to be displayed twice because there are some delay when the notification is received. Maybe I want, instead of you have a new email, I want to display the number of email. And this is something that can be hard to do directly server side. So you might want to do it on your device, but still say that you have a new data. So instead of sending the notification that will be displayed directly by the app, you will send a data-only notification, and you will then compute which notification you have to display depending on the state of your application. So yeah, data-only notifications are used to trigger action in your app and not trigger directly a notification. It could be like for logging something or changing a settings remotely using a notification. And yeah, as I said, your app has to answer this notification fast enough because data-only notification will trigger some computation on your side. Otherwise, it's that you're not using the notification, so you probably shouldn't send it. And so yeah, especially on iOS, you have to respond like quickly. I think it's less than 5 seconds. Otherwise, you will get rate limited quite fast. Yeah, and your app will have to handle notification on its own. Means that you will the notification will not be displayed directly. You will have to show it on your own. So this is a way of sending a data-only notification. So as you see now in the messaging payload, there is no more notification key. I have a type, I have a history ID, and then I have an option, messaging option object that will send priority high and content available true. Content available true is particularly important for iOS. Otherwise, your app might never receive the notification because iOS thinks, okay, there is nothing for the app in it. And then when using admin.messaging.send to device, then you add the option data and your app will receive it a data-only notification. So yeah, that's a way of getting data-only notification, and then you can handle everything properly. I will show you just after that how to, when you receive a data-only notification, maybe get data from Riverpod, for instance, to calculate properly and display a notification according to your local state. But first, I wanted to show quickly how to bind a notification to GoRouter. So as you may know, GoRouter is often used directly in the widget tree. So you have your material app.router, you add your router, and everything works fine. But when responding to a notification, when you click on it, you might want to change the location in your app. This is where you can get directly, for instance, here the thread ID from the payload from your notification, and then directly use router.go. You used to have to bind everything below the Go router instance, but now since it's a global object, you can just use it. And even if your app is still starting when you're clicking on it, it will still go to the right page. So this is quite easy with Go router. Another thing that is quite interesting is when receiving a notification while being killed, you will start the background thread to handle everything. And since you're in the background thread, which is outside the widget tree, you will not have access to context.ref or something like that. You will not have access to the consumer widget. So I actually wasn't sure about this solution, but I've asked Remy, and he was okay with that. So I'm like, okay, I can show it to you. So when using a background handler, you can directly initialize a provider container, which will be like the main thing that is created when injecting Riverpod in your widget tree. And then using this container, you can read all your providers normally and do everything you have to do to handle the new email. And then at the end, you shouldn't forget to use container.dispose. Otherwise, you might get like 2 instances of Riverpod running in parallel when your app will be opened by the user, which is not good. So yeah, you have to use dispose at the end, and then you can use Riverpod normally, which is really nice because you're still outside of the widget tree, but you can reuse all your service provider and things like that. The next thing I want to do is here, I've used like await notification service.handle new mail, but I didn't say exactly what I was doing. And here, since I was receiving a data-only notification, nothing was appearing on my device. I had some processing to do on my end before displaying the notification. And to display the notification, I was using Flutter local notification. So Flutter local notification, so FLN, is a powerful Flutter plugin that allows to display notification locally. It's really nice, and I really encourage people to use it instead of relying on the notification key of your notification provider, because it allows to calculate everything locally and be really close to the state of your app. It supports a lot of features like displaying group notification through thread IDs. You can clear notification really easily. You can customize notification for each platform, because maybe on Android you will have a huge body that you can expand, whereas on iOS you will just have a small subtitles. And of course, it can be used with data-only notification to transform them into notification that can be displayed to your end user. So yeah, the first thing when using a Flutter local notification is to always put a notification ID that you will be able to reuse later, because it can be used in a lot of different ways. Sometimes your user will for instance, have a notification but still read the message directly in your app, so you want to remove this notification. So you should always ensure that you can find your notification ID back, so have a way of going from data to notification ID in a straight path, so you'll not have duplicated IDs, otherwise you will not be able to erase them. So this is, yeah, pretty simple. And then you can also like create threads, which is also really useful for creating contacts, or for receiving messages from your contacts, stuff like that. So it's really easy with Flutter local notification as well. So as you can see here, in my notification details, I can customize each platform. So I will have a Darwin notification details for iOS and macOS. And for Android, I will have Android notification details. So as you can see, for instance, for Darwin notification details, I have a lot more information. And here to group my messages, I'm using a thread identifier. Whereas in Android, this is a group key. So it's weird because they have like notification handled really differently between Android and iOS, but they still tried to give you access to everything that you have on the native platform. So terms will be a little bit weird. There are other packages instead of Flutter local notification, I think like awesome notification, for instance, that abstract it a lot, but you are losing some features. So I will probably advise to use Flutter local notification if you want full control over your data. And then you see that even on my local notification, I can still add some payload that will be used after. So the payload is always a string, so you have to decode it after that. But yeah, so thanks to Flutter local notification and data only notification from my server, I can like tailor all notification directly on my device, so it's more useful to the user, and it's probably easier on the server, because on the server you don't need to do all the computation, and you don't need to store like maybe the local state of your app in your server to be sure then to send like perfectly customized notification directly. So yeah, and the last thing I wanted to share with you is how to debug notification. So especially on iOS, you will sometimes run on different issue that maybe I don't receive any notification, or my notification are displayed once every 2 times. So we have a special issue template. So when you create new issue, you have an iOS background message and link bug reports for Firebase messaging, which is like oddly specific, but we received like so many reports that we had to do it because it was always the same answer, like we were missing data. And if you are following this issue tracker, it will help you debug everything, getting proper logs for each of your notification, ensuring that you have all the correct things properly enabled in your Xcode project. And with that, you should be able like to have properly working a notification for all your projects. So that's it. And if you have any question.